prepare ourselves, if you put your hand over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. Now if you put your hand over your heart, extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. Today's spiritual truth is you are enough. You are enough. You know, so often people come into my office, or I hear people in the grocery store, or sometimes I look in the mirror and I realize we are gripped with a lot of not enough-ism here on the planet. That somehow we feel we don't measure up. We're not good enough in our life for some reason or another. And I'm here to tell you this morning that a prolonged experience of not enough-ism, a prolonged experience of not feeling good enough will make you sick. It's the very reason people buy gin in gallons. It's the very reason people put needles up their arms. It's the very reason some of us fall face down in the food. So that we can be, it's the very reason that some of us are experiencing those long bouts of depression. Those long bouts of depression where we go to work and we see people who are less qualified and less creative getting promotions, and we're not, because we're gripped with not enough-ism in our lives. It's the whole reason Wayne Dyer wrote the book Excuses Be Gone, so that we could begin to get a grip on this not enough-ism. It's the reason Bill Wilson wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, so we could begin to get a grip on this. It's the whole reason that Jesus repeated the words of the psalmist who said, "Don't you know you're God's? Don't you know that? And if you know it, can you stay with it for a while?" Our work isn't to work harder to become more. Our work is to work harder to understand who we already are and the power that we have within us, because we are representations of the presence of God. We have all of the power we need to do whatever it is we need on the planet. We need to become clear of that, because here's the thing. Our work is to stop analyzing how we got to not enough-ism. Our work is to stop blaming our parents. Our work is to stop blaming society. Our work is to stop blaming any of the number of isms out there that we could draw upon for why we don't feel like we're enough. Leave it alone. It's done. Our work now is to begin to concentrate how we can fill ourselves up with power so that we know we are enough in our life. See, what happens is we have an opportunity coming to a church like this to move from victim, and I mean little kind of victim, where we're just a little bit victimy, to major victimy, where we're like the drama queens of the nation. We have an opportunity to move from that place into victory. And by victory, I mean an abundant people. People who understand what abundance is. It means something. It means that I have enough money that I'm not worried at the end of the month whether I'm going to have enough money to pay my mortgage and my dental bill and send the kids to camp or do whatever it is I want to do. I don't have that because I'm enough, and I live in a world of abundance, and I know that. I live in a world of joy, and I know that because I wake up every day and I'm happy. I'm happy I woke up every day. That's what victory is. It's not piety. It's not being churchy. It's feeling good about ourselves. It's feeling enough about ourselves. Well, one of the things that we know is that there are people that we know that have had terrible childhoods. And some of us in this room have had terrible childhoods. And some of us in this room had fairly decent childhoods, and we managed to turn our young adult life into total chaos. So we need now to begin to do the work inside. See, turning from victim to victory is an inside job. We may have had help along the way, but until you say, I'm better than this. I'm more than this. I'm more than trying to scrape money together every month. I'm more than drinking my life to death. I'm more than eating my life to death. I'm more than this. Until we can say that inside, we're never going to be able to move. We're never going to be able to shift, to be able to use the power that is available to us all of the time. Well, I'm going to borrow on one of my favorite authors to begin to work with this not enoughism. His name is Emmet Fox. Those of you who know Emmet Fox, he was born in Ireland. He was educated in England. He came to the United States to do the majority of his work. He was a major influence in metaphysics. He was a major influence in the recovery movement. I'm going to say that if you ever have an opportunity to pick up an Emmet Fox book, do it. Your life will be much better. And here's the good thing about Emmet Fox. The thing I love the most about Emmet Fox, he's simple. He's brilliantly simple. You know, we have a founder, Ernest Holmes. He's brilliantly complicated. Okay? You have to really get in and work it. Emmet Fox, he just lays it right out there. He just tells it exactly how it is in a way that all of us can understand. Well, I'm going to talk today about I'm going to talk about 4 of the 7 main aspects of God. Next week, I'll do the last 3 of the main aspects of God. Now, the book is called The 7 Main Aspects of God, but it could be called The 7 Main Aspects of God and You, because all of God is you are. All of the attributes that I'm going to be talking about, you have access to through your hookup with the power. But you have to be conscious about doing it. So we want to make sure that we understand it. God, he says this. He says, I think he hits the nail on the head. He said, in order for us to understand the aspects of God, see, because anytime you try and describe God, you can't do it. The great St. Augustine, the great Catholic theologian, said, every time you put words to God, you've just limited an unlimited essence. Can't do it. But you can't talk about the aspects of God, and that's what we're going to do today. I think he hit the nail on the head when he talked about God. He said, look, most of us still think about God as a superhuman being who's wise and powerful, but still human. Now, I know that Reverend Betsy, Reverend Brenda, and I, and all the practitioners, we still grapple with that. We're having to constantly refresh who God is in our life, because how we learned about God as children is deep. It's deep, and it worms its little way back into our consciousness. And we have those childhood images of God. We either think of God as like Santa Claus or somebody who's going to beat us up because we did something wrong. He begins to say, you know, when we're children and we look at the street in front of our house, when we're little guys, we think it's a boulevard. When we look at a 3-story building, we think it's a skyscraper. We think our parents can just do anything when we're little. And then we start to grow up, and we look at our street out in front of the house, and when we're 15, we say, well, that's not so big a street. That's not a boulevard, because we grew up and we changed our opinion. We look at a 3-story building, we say, that's not a skyscraper, because we grew up and we changed how we look at things. And if any of you have teenagers, you know they grew up and they don't think you can do anything. The problem is we change as we grow with those kinds of things, but we don't change about God. We don't change how we think about God very often. See, we grew up with this old idea that we need to change. We need to begin to make it bigger than what it is right now. Well, so I want to talk about these aspects of God. And here's the thing about aspects of God that I want you to know. They were good billions of years ago. They were the same billions of years ago, these aspects. And they will be the same aspects of God billions of years from now, because they are not changeable. So we're going to talk about 3 of them today. And the first one is that God is life. God is life. See, God is not just living. God is life itself, and it lives through us. Can we put that slide on the door? We're going to, on the next one up there, we're going to chant this 5 times together. Because this is a tool that you can have. Again, there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. See, sometimes we get this idea that God gave us birth and then just sent us out there. God never leaves you. You can't breathe yourself. You can't stop breathing by consciousness. It just breathes you. It tells you when to breathe in. It tells you when to breathe out. That's God breathing through you. You can't beat your heart. Your heart is beating. It is the life of God beating through us right now. See, we're never alone. We're never alone from that. What he says is, learn this or something like it. Now, this is a little long. And then begin to speak it into when you're scared, you speak life. You speak life into it. You speak God into it. When you're not feeling well, you speak God into your life. You speak life into your experience that you're having right there. Now, it sounds like, oh, never mind whether it's all you have to do or not. That's not the point. The point is, start here. Don't argue about what you got to do later. Just start here. Breathe life into what it is that you're doing. See, we're going to go to Costa Rica next year, and we're going to have flyers in the back and the front in June, next June. And I've been to Costa Rica twice, and I did the zip line. Now, that sounds like kind of a fun little, no, it's a big deal. There are 9 platforms that you leave from, and you're way high. You barely see the ground. You barely see the tops of the trees. And I'm the minister, so I zip-lined twice. I went twice. I zip-lined twice. And I'm thinking, well, I should set a good example. I better just get up there on the platform. I get up there, and the first push off, this is God's life. This is God's life. This is God's life. I couldn't even remember this. I was so scared. All I could say is, this is God's life. This is God's life. This is God's life. And I'm telling you, it made me through. Now, you can do that wherever you are. You know, you're going into an interview for a job. This is God's life. My life is God's life. You're going into the doctor to hear some news. This is God's life. My life is God's life. You have a child who you're concerned about. You speak, maybe they're just not handling life as you hope they would. Don't be afraid to speak life into them. Don't tell them. Don't do it in front of them. Do it in your heart. I speak life into you. Your life is God's life. Try it. Just try it. See what it does for you and for other people. You know, the choir sometimes sings a song, let the word do the work. Let the word do the work. And that's what we want you to do here, is let the word do the work. Your intention of speaking life. The second one is truth. God is not truthful. God is truth itself. See, it sort of supports this notion of today's spiritual truth that you are enough. When we begin to learn to speak our truth in our life, not conditions, not history. We're not speaking our history. I'm so screwed up with money. Ooh, I'm so screwed up with sobriety. I'm so screwed. No, we're not speaking history. We're speaking truth into our life, and you all know what the truth is. Deep inside of you. People come to me and they say, you know the most important thing I get in church all day? It's when you say you are whole, perfect, and complete. That's the most important thing I hear every Sunday. In fact, I come for it on Sunday. I could leave right after that. Please don't. And that's because it resonates with your soul. You know that. And what you're feeling at any given moment can be brought back to intuition and to your truth. See, truth is never condition related. See? Never condition related. Sometimes, we tell white lies. Did you ever do that? You're telling white lies, and you know it's a white lie. You know it's not truth. But you think you're saving yourself some nervousness, and you're saving the other person from hearing bad news. Okay? When we do that, we are just heaping more not enough-ism into ourselves, and we are, in fact, telling that other person, you're not enough to hear what it is I have to say. See, it's very important when we begin to tell the truth. Jesus said, the truth will set you free. You can train yourself to take a moment and just hear the truth in yourself. Allow others a journey too. Everybody has the presence of God. Everybody has the power. Number 3 is love. Love. God is more than loving. God is love itself. And Emmet Fox says this. He says, of the 7 that I'm going to talk about, this is the most important. Remember this one. Love heals all. Say that with me. Love heals all. That's why it's so important. When we say in the morning, everything is either a call for love or an expression of love, no exceptions. We say that because we believe that love heals everything. I work with families that are totally separated in estrangement. Half the time they don't even know what actually happened. They just know they continue to be estranged. If they would step out in love, doesn't mean that you're a doormat. Doesn't mean you need to have people all over you. But it means that you step out in love and allow the love to heal whatever it is that is supporting you. Now look, that's not easy. In Science of Mind, we say this. We require people to have strong convictions. Not just fleeting moments, but strong convictions. The same conviction that 2 and 2 is 4. You don't argue with that. You just know it is. Chicago is in Illinois. You don't argue with that. It just is. We have a piano here. You don't argue with that. It just is. We want you to have that conviction with love heals all conditions. And I invite you to practice it this week. All of us have some little irksome thing going on in our life. Maybe it's a little irksome thing. Maybe it's a big irksome thing. Try this week. Try a little love on it. Try sprinkling a little love on it. Maybe that person in your office is working your last nerve and you just wish they'd take the day off. You wouldn't even mind if they got sick. Just don't come to work. Try spreading a little love on them. Retire, yeah. You just finish it off completely. No. That's not the point over there. The point is, try sprinkling a little love on it. Just do something sweet and see if it doesn't begin to shift it. The last one that we're going to work with today is intelligence. The 4th aspect of God is intelligence. Now, God is not just intelligent. God is intelligence itself. And we're not talking about book smart. We love book smart in this church, but that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about plain old smart. See, when we can understand that we live in an intelligent universe and we are intelligence itself because God is intelligence itself, that not enoughism will begin to just drift away. But you have to do that. You have to begin to look around and say, I live. The whole Taoist movement is based on recognizing an intelligent universe. It's the whole point. They just look at the universe and they begin to see how they can live in harmony and love. When we look at the intelligence of the universe and we're not battling it, we're not swimming upstream when the water's going downstream, we can begin to look at something and see how to live. And we will become much more focused on enoughism than not enoughism when we're in touch with that. You know, we're like an engine. An engine is perfectly built. It doesn't have extra parts, and it doesn't have not enough parts. It has just the right amount of parts in order to work. That's true for you too. You're like an engine. You have just the right amount of parts. Nothing was left off. You have exactly what you need to be living a life of happiness. See, Fox brings us back to this idea that we have to stop thinking of God as a magnified human being. And some of us have done this. We think of God as a magnified human being, and then we got involved in metaphysics, and we swang way over to the other side. And now we think God is a force, just a blind force, nothing else. Look, God loves you. God is a loving, living being inside of you. A loving, living being inside of you. Ernest Holmes says, God is not a person, but God is very personal to each and every one of us. And we heal through that acknowledgement that we live in an intelligent universe. So, okay, Reverend Georgia, is this all I have to do in order to live a life of happiness? I have to understand, well, next week I'll be here for sure, and I'll get those last 3 aspects of God. And then I just have to know what they are, and I have to speak love and be aware of intelligence. And I'm here to tell you, we worry too much about second steps before. No, it's not all you have to do, okay? But if we could only get that, we would be taking leaps and bounds from where we are right now, each and every one of us. So I hope you work with these this week. Pick one of them or all 4. And begin to work with it in your life, in your family life, in your work life, in your recreation life. And begin to see if it doesn't make some change in your life. Let's take this message into prayer. There's only one power and presence. It is the power and presence that is within and through each and every single person in this room. We are enough because we are the presence of God. We're not all of God. We couldn't possibly be all of God. We can't even wrap our heads around how big God is. But God is all of us. And when we understand that, we walk taller. We're more generous. We laugh heartier. We cry deeper. Just this one understanding. I give thanks for this. I give thanks for every single person in this church and in every worship center. I give thanks for all those Juneteenth parties that were held this weekend. For it's the recognition of more truth. I give thanks. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.